Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Wendy Griffith. The Senate passed a measure this week to ban the popular social media app TikTok from government devices. See why coming up. Plus, Jews in America are in danger. They're being targeted with religious hate crimes.
You got Saturday Night Live normalizing anti-Semitism. You got NBA players, full-blown anti-Semites. What has to happen? Jews being beaten up in the streets?
See more on why this Israeli journalist is telling American Jews to get out now, then later. It's long days for rodeo cowboys.
Bareback riding is the ultimate test of man versus beast. You're putting yourself in an extremely labor-intensive, dangerous situation.
See what it takes to compete on the rodeo circuit. All these stories and more are coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour with the potential dangers of the country's most popular social media app, TikTok, and that's due to its connection to China. Several states now ban public employees from using it, and lawmakers in Washington are moving to take action as well, with the Senate passing a measure this week to ban it from government devices. CBN's Brody Carter reports on the concerns over this controversial app and how it could invade users' privacy.
TikTok is being called digital fentanyl by congressional leaders seeking to ban it. They argue it's addicting users and posing a serious threat to national security.
We recognize and understand that the Chinese government is using this app to collect data on citizens here in our country, that they could even access personal information, get access to our financial institutions, and it is a cybersecurity threat that we need to take action against.
South Dakota's Kristi Noem is one of 7 governors barring public employees from using TikTok on government devices.
In fact, if a state employee or someone who contracts with the state does download the app of TikTok or access it, that it'll be a criminal offense.
The trending ban is also gaining traction at the federal level. Wednesday, senators passed Josh Hawley's bill banning TikTok on all government devices.
How much do you think it's appropriate that the Chinese, communist China, let's remember it's communist China, the communist China government should know everything about your movement, your information, anything they want about you?
Senator Rick Scott has championed the bill and understands it's not just government employees who are targets. He tells CBN News he's worried everyone's user data is fair game for China's playbook.
We've got to wake up. I mean, Chinese drones or TikTok or buying any Chinese product. I mean, China, the government of China has decided to be our adversary. They've decided to build a military to defeat us.
The main concern is TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, which is required by the government to make the app's data available to the Chinese Communist Party. Lawmakers, led by Senator Marco Rubio, want a nationwide ban against TikTok.
Companies under the control of the Chinese Communist Party should not have access, unfettered access, to the private data of millions and millions of Americans that they can then use against us for espionage, for foreign policy, for division.
Policy experts fear the move might get pushback from elected officials who want to take political advantage of the app's massive reach.
If we look back at the midterm cycle, we saw everyone from Amy Klobuchar to Stacey Abrams, doing TikTok dances with influencers. President Biden has invited countless TikTok influencers to the White House. They don't want to ban this because it's politically convenient during the electoral cycles to have it at their disposal.
From a privacy standpoint, Denton says it's hard to tell if your phone could be compromised or susceptible to any China data grab. He recommends just deleting the TikTok app or possibly getting a new phone.
Just because it's insulated to your child's device doesn't mean necessarily the parents, work materials, all those things aren't at risk. So it's very critical that you remove this essentially from your family's tech sphere, right? I mean, get it out of kind of your family's home.
Brody Carter, CBN News.
Thanks, Brody. The White House is preparing for a COVID Christmas spike, announcing new plans to boost the fight against the virus. It includes an end of a 3-month hiatus, allowing all U.S. households the ability once again to order 4 free at-home COVID tests on covidtest.gov. All health insurance plans are still required to cover and free at-home tests for each person. The White House has also put people and equipment on standby if hospitals get overwhelmed with cases. And a letter has been sent to all governors outlining actions to prepare for a surge. Well, food banks and pantries nationwide are struggling to keep up with demand. Soaring food prices combined with fewer donations are leading to thinly stocked shelves. As Charlene Aaron shows us, the impact makes it more challenging to feed the hungry, especially this time of year.
This church here in Virginia Beach operates the largest food pantry in the city, serving more than 1,000 people each week. High inflation and rising food prices nationwide have led to a decrease in what some food banks can provide.
Our shelves are a little bare.
For the past 10 years, The Gathering at Scott Memorial United Methodist Church has hosted Fresh Food Wednesdays, an outreach distributing food to the community's working poor.
Every week we hit a new record of new families. Many have tears in their eyes as they thank us and also as they say, this is the first time I've ever needed this.
Those numbers are likely to keep growing, with even higher grocery prices expected and the colder weather ahead. According to Feeding America President Katie Fitzgerald, high prices will continue to drive more and more of our neighbors to food banks and food pantries as we enter the winter season. Meanwhile, donations have decreased over the last few months. Christopher Tan is with the Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore.
Down, pretty significantly, 20% or so in the last 6 months. Because at the same time that we're down in food donations, we're also up in people in line.
Some have actually sat out in their car for 4 hours waiting for us to open the door.
Tim Wright is part of the leadership team at the food pantry. He says getting supplies from the food bank is critical, and some key products are proving harder to come by.
We make every effort to put together a package of food for our guests that is well-rounded. Currently, we are very short of canned vegetables. We can procure food. I have soup here, I have some fruits, but I have no canned vegetables.
When that happens, the church must come up with other ways to meet the needs.
For example, we have lots of spaghetti paste or sauce, but we don't have the pasta. From our church funds, we will buy the pasta and supplement the bag so that we can put into the bag a meal, of pasta and sauce.
The non-perishable items are certainly the things that we need the most to get, but protein is also difficult to get, so chicken, pork, etc.
Items Pastor Parker hopes to provide families for the holidays.
We're hopeful that we can give out a good meat selection right before Christmas so people can either have that ham or turkey or something special, as they deserve to have special meals just as much as everyone.
Despite the challenges with keeping the shelves stocked, the team at The Gathering trusts God will continue to provide.
There have been weeks that we're not sure how much food we're going to have, and every single week God shows up
with love and support for families who need it most.
We just want them to feel our love and feel that we're glad that they're there.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. Coming up, see why one Israeli journalist says Jews in America should get out now. Stay with us. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Jews living in America today are in more danger than ever. The FBI reports that more than 60% of religious hate crimes in the U.S. target Jews, even though they make up less than 2.5% of the population. That's why one Israeli journalist is telling American Jews to get out now. Paul Strand reports.
Hillel Fold usually follows and advises Israel's high-tech industry. Recently, though, he waded into heavier matters with a column entitled American Jews Get Out Now. He wrote it because of the rising tide of anti-Semitism and his desire for his Jewish friends in the U.S. to read the writing on the wall.
Since I'm a little kid, having grandparents who survived Auschwitz, I've always struggled with the question, why didn't they get out? Right? Nuremberg laws. These guys, full-blown, anti-Semitism, mainstream society in Europe, the Jews just stuck around. And I asked myself, why didn't they read the writing on the wall? What had to happen? And I never understood it. I always struggled with that. And then I look at America right now. You got full-blown pop artists, Kanye West, going full-blown anti-Semite. You got Saturday Night Live normalizing anti-Semitism. You got NBA players, full-blown anti-Semites. What has to happen? Jews being beaten up in the streets? Done. It's done. But what has to happen for the Jews to say, all right, enough is enough. This is not our home. Now, we always grew up saying never again. Obviously, the Holocaust can never happen again. The truth is, it could never happen again because we have Israel. But American Jews, I think they're not looking at history. I think they're maybe ignoring, what went on throughout the Jewish, history, from the Spanish Inquisition to the pogroms to the Holocaust. We got too comfortable.
And Fold's frustration is that this attitude remains, although Jews are being physically assaulted in a number of American cities.
I see it pretty much every day on my Facebook feeds, every day. Yeah, I mean, literally last night, a friend of mine on Twitter, she said she was walking with her family in the street, and some African American came over and said, "Oh, we're gonna kill all you Jews." And everyone stood around watching this thing, yelling in her face, cursing her kids and everything. People stood around watching. Nobody said a word. Nobody did a thing. The whole thing, listen, really, the whole thing doesn't make any sense because, the Jews are statistically non-existent. We're so small, right? 20% of all Nobel Prizes were given to Jews. Do you know that? 20%. There's something remarkable about the Jewish people. I don't think anyone would debate that. We survived, and the Romans didn't, and the Greeks didn't, and the Nazis didn't. We're here, right? But there is this, I don't know. I can tell you my theory of why anti-Semitism exists, but there is this just historic thing that just keeps showing its ugly face every generation. And again, it's unfortunate that Jews forget history. Look at Germany. You don't have to think about 300 years. I'm talking about Germany, 80 years ago. They were comfortable until they weren't.
Fold says the solution is for Jews to leave and head for Israel. Those outside Israel, however, might be under the impression its Jewish population constantly lives in fear of terror attacks.
First of all, I don't know if you know, but my older brother was murdered in a terrorist attack. So I know it firsthand, okay? I'm not, every life that's lost is an entire world. Having said that, we have to look at the grand scheme of things. Take a step back. There has never been a 75-year period. Listen to this statistics, it's phenomenal. It's just fascinating. There has never been a 75-year period since the destruction of the temple that there were so few Jews killed in the world. So again, every life that's lost to terrorism is a horrible tragedy, but in the grand scheme of things, this country's defending us. Whereas there, we're at the mercy of everyone else, and we know how that turns out. So, yeah, I think it is significantly safer here. And I'm not belittling. There is terror, but in the grand scheme of things, it's in our hands. This is our home. I heard someone say, in America, you can succeed despite being a Jew. In Israel, you succeed because you're a Jew. To me, that's what it comes down to. And by the way, someone recently said to me, they moved to Israel. He said, not because I'm a Zionist, but because I'm a capitalist, which is amazing because this is where it's all going on in terms of technology and innovation. So, we're living the dream. It's never been this good for the Jewish people, and I'm proud to live here. I'm a big talker. My parents brought me here. I didn't make a decision. I want to believe that had they not brought me here, I would have come myself. But in America, it's scary. It's scary times.
Wow. Thanks, Paul. You can see more news from the Middle East with Chris in his team tonight on Jerusalem Dateline, actually, tonight at 8:30 Eastern or on the CBN News app. Still ahead, a blur of aggression and madness, and you could end up hurt or killed. That's how this rodeo bareback rider describes his day job. So why does he keep getting in the saddle? See for yourself coming up. From town to town, rodeo cowboys are on the road for more than 200 days a year. It's a tough way of life, and professional bareback rider Anthony Thomas has been doing it for 12 years. Sports reporter Tom Buring talked with a veteran and his new rookie about what it takes to compete on the rodeo circuit.
Bareback riding is the ultimate test of man versus beast. You're putting yourself in an extremely labor-intensive, dangerous situation at all times. A blur of aggression and madness.
The same rodeo bareback riders who fight for their seats must also fight for their success. They're world-class competitors at the mercy of their handheld grips.
You're going to go into this fight and you're going to win, and if not, you could end up badly hurt or killed. You have to have complete control in a completely uncontrollable situation.
Anthony Thomas is from Australia, but now lives in Texas. The professional rodeo veteran has learned to maneuver the rugged uncertainty of both the ride and the life that comes with it.
Does that transfer over to the culture and lifestyle of rodeo?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of camaraderie. We travel together and we compete against each other. You go from town to town and rodeo to rodeo, and you can just live a reckless lifestyle. We're on the road for over 200 days out of the year, and so they have to be like your family. It's great for me to be able to be a mentor for them, not just in the sport entirely, but in their spiritual life and their Christian walk as well. Today's a beautiful day for a cowboy baptism. Got a young bareback rider who's made the best choice he'll ever make.
Mark Foster has pastored and mentored rodeo cowboys for decades. Anthony was one of them, who now brings other competitive riders alongside his mentoring.
What is it about the cowboy life that requires mentoring to navigate things?
Rodeo life is not an easy life. There's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of temptations there, so it's really good for them to have some accountability. And Anthony wants accountability. Anthony began to learn how, as a real tough guy, to surrender to Jesus. And he's a great mentor to young cowboys.
Do you find yourself advising the way that you wished you could have been advised years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. I came to America and I didn't even know how this whole game of rodeo worked. And so in this way of life, everybody wants to muscle it out and be so strong and be tough and take care of things themselves and hold on to the one thing that they think that they can have control of. And really, you don't get tough until you surrender those things. You have to surrender control every day to God. The definition of faith says to trust Him.
Waylon Bourgeois is new to the circuit and is this year's frontrunner as Rodeo Bareback Rookie of the Year.
What's the best advice Anthony has given you in living out your faith?
There's a bunch of advice that he's given me. If I'd have to pick one right now, it would be just be a better person than you were the day before. That really stood out to me. You take steps you never knew you could do. It drives me every time I pull up to the rodeo.
How does the companionship and even the accountability with him help you?
It's always good to have an older guy in the rig and a younger guy in the rig, because the younger guy brings the want, and he definitely has fire, you know. He wants it. Experiences, you know, he's been there, done that. He's been riding bucking horses for 12 years now, and I'm definitely grateful to guide me and lead me in the right direction. You trust your training from the muscle memory that you have that you taught yourself during the week on the spur board and the bucking machine. And so, I mean, if you don't work at it and prepare for it during the week, of course you're going to overthink it and be like, hey, am I ready for it?
What are the challenges in making choices that you believe in the industry that you're in?
Yeah, rodeo definitely has its bad and good, but life does too, you know. You can turn the other cheek and walk away from bad choices, or you can stay close to God and make the right choices.
The very athlete that you're mentoring is your competitor. Why empower him?
It's my job as a Christian to add value to people's lives and be salt and light to the world. The more I can pour into his life and try to steer him away from the big mistakes that I made early in my career and in my life, the better off I'm going to be, because the better he's doing, the better I'm going to be doing. And if he's a successor from something he learned from me or through me, then that's far greater success than winning a world title. Waylon and I are representatives of Christ, so the number one goal in life is to be the hands and feet of Jesus.
You're fearless competitors. You have to be. What does surrender mean to you?
You surrender to a bucking horse and you're hitting the dirt real fast, but it's okay to surrender to God, because He's going to achieve more things than you ever thought you could achieve. You don't want to show weakness, but God is our Lord and Savior, and it's okay to show weakness to Him. In our weakness, He is made strong. There's so many highs and lows. You might go a whole 2 or 3 months without ever winning a check. You might be injured. You don't draw a horse that's good enough that you can win on. And no matter what happens, I can have the strongest warrior attitude, because I have a God that created the whole world that's on my side. I surrender and die to self every day and put Jesus first in my life. No matter what happens, I'll always end up on top and I'll always be provided for.
How do you encourage people that have the opportunity to invest into somebody else's life?
You have a platform right where you are. God's placed you in a perfect position right where you are. You don't have to achieve whatever it is you think in your head that you have to become before you can minister to somebody, talk to somebody about Jesus. And there's somebody watching, there's somebody around you, somebody in your circle of life that you can be the difference for.
Great story coming up. See why one officer who pulled a lady over for speeding says it was an encounter from God. We'll explain right after this. One officer in Gaston County, North Carolina, helped a woman who was caught speeding after he learned about a fire at her home. Letitia Elmore left her empty home for work last Sunday morning. Her 4 kids were already with relatives and safe. While driving to work, she got a call saying her home was on fire. She quickly turned around, as anyone would, driving at speeds of 60 miles per hour in a 35-mile zone when she was stopped by Officer Jesse Freeman. She told the officer she didn't have her license and feared the worst. Officer Freeman says it was a God encounter.
I believe that God set our encounter in motion that morning. So I could just see in her eyes that something was not right.
I just knew it was over for me. I'm like, they're not going to believe me. They probably think I'm just making up something to not get a ticket or go to jail.
God bless her. Officer Freeman's sergeant was able to confirm that Elmore's home was indeed on fire. Both the officer and sergeant could relate because in the past their own homes had burned down just before Christmas as well. They made a decision to give her a ride to a relative's home, and on the way there, Officer Freeman prayed for her and tried to calm her down. The single mother of 4 ended up losing everything in that fire, but the officer assured her that everything was going to be okay.
A lot. The whole reason I entered this career is because I generally want to help people.
A God encounter indeed, and we still pray, well, we do pray that she still is able to have a very Merry Christmas somehow. God will do it. God is able. Well, that's it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find all of our news programs on CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen today, or you can reach out on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We hope you'll join us next time. From all of us here at CBN News Watch, have a great weekend, and God bless you.